Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another new Film Fanatic show. Hope everyone's doing good. It is Tuesday, 11:43. I have this whole week off with school. It's a February break already. It's hard to believe. It's crazy. I'm also joined by my very special guest, Lucy. Lucy, just recently, as of like pretty much a month or two ago, she turned 21 years old. I've had this kitty for an incredibly long time. If she could talk, she would have some stories. We've been through a lot together. Unbelievable. Um, I've had pets, my entire life. For the most part, I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I had dogs. We had dogs growing up as a kid. When I was a kid, we had a few dogs, and I never really liked cats. Um, During that time, we never had cats. We always were a dog family. We had dogs that were puppies, and raised them to their to adulthood, and then fast forward many many years after like college, I had never had any interactions with cats, and I had a girlfriend, probably in my mid to late 20s, that had a roommate that had a bunch of cats, or a few cats, and we would go over to her house, or I would go over to her house a lot to hang out, and then the cat that they had, or cats that they had, were really vicious, and I would always get attacked by this cat. It got to the point where I hated to go over there, and I just I hated it because I'd get scratched, or the cat would try to jump on me. And then I had another experience also, the same kind of thing, with somebody I knew. It was in a band situation, and they had a cat that was an outdoor cat and would come into our rehearsals, to the rehearsal space. And this cat was a mean little bastard, vicious. And that was more recent, more recently. But early on, with the first experience I had with my girlfriend at the time, who had a cat, was around cats, their roommate had cats. I did not like cats for the longest time, and this was like going back. I was like in my mid to late 20s, and then fast forward, um, I don't know, maybe 5 to 7 years after that, I ended up dating another girl, and we ended up being together for almost 10 years. She was really into cats, and she wanted to get for us to get some cats together, and I was really not into that idea. Really not into that idea because of my experience with cats. They were, I thought they were just vicious little animals that would claw you to death. My experience again had only been with the doggies, and I always, for the most part, had great experiences with the dogs. Dogs obviously take a lot more work to take care of, and to raise, and all those things. Cats are very low maintenance and pretty laid back, but I didn't like how temperamental they were, and my experiences how vicious they were. So I was not really into that idea. And eventually she worked on me hard, and then I was like, okay, I'm willing to give it a shot. And at that time, we had a couple of friends that lived in Portland, Maine, who had cats, and they were selling a litter of cats. And so we ended up getting them. We ended up getting all these cats for free. And we think we got about, might have been about 4 to 5 cats. And my girlfriend at the time, she took three or four of them, and I took one by myself, and they were all kittens, and so we had two different houses. I shortly after we did all of these things with buying these cats, I had bought this little house that I still have now, and she had an apartment, and also was in the midst of buying this little house. So we would like go back and forth between the houses. But she had three of the cats. She was a cat lady, a cat person her whole life. It was really new for me, and I was like really not into it. And so I ended up taking, getting one of the free kitties, and named her Lucy. And I named her Lucy after one of my favorite horror novels of all time, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Lucy's one of the characters in the classic story. So that's where I got her name. And my girlfriend at the time, she was, well, how should I say? I think she was pretty reckless and negligent when it came to taking care of animals. And she would let the cats, kind of do whatever they want to do. And I live on Route 1 here in Northport, which is a real busy road, and not a good place for like to have cats run around or dogs outside because they'll get hit. So right away I was like, well, no, Lucy is going to be an indoor cat. And my girlfriend at the time was pretty negligent, and she just was like, her head was in the clouds about a lot of things. And so she let the cats, they were inside and then outside at the same time. And over, a couple of years, all of the cats died. They all got run over. And she just never seemed to like, one would die, one would get crushed by a car, and she just wouldn't really change her behavior. And she was always just like, oh, it's let the cats be free, blah, blah, blah. And where she lived, there was a pretty busy, road as well. And she just never really changed her behavior. So all of the cats in the litter died. All of the kitties died. They all died a horrible death by getting run over a series of years. But Lucy and I, she stayed inside, and she never had ever been outside or anything. And so, and we've had, I will say I've never had a deeper connection to an animal. So, yeah, pretty incredible. We've been through so much, so many good things and bad things. Just amazing. Um, in tough times, I, and even like recently, were some tough patches that I was going through, um, that were really tough. And I found like she's always been a really affectionate cat, and really, playful, and you know cats or animals in general are all, they're always, they kind of get a routine. And we had this routine of always like basically watching movies together. She would sit in my lap, and we'd watch movies together. That was like that's been our regular thing for a long time. And now she's not doing very, very well, and we're seeing how things go. She can't really walk right now, and she's not really eating, so I'm trying to see how things go. I don't want her to be in pain. I don't want her to suffer. Um, but I'm going to see how things go. And so she's lived a long, incredible life. Um, but getting back to what I was saying, I was going through a particular bad period quite a few months ago now. Pretty depressed about certain things that were happening. And so, and I noticed, and she's always been a real affectionate kitty, but I noticed um, she was like extra affectionate when I was like kind of down in the dumps. I was kind of doing my thing, going to work and trying to get work done and music done or whatever the hell I do when I'm home. I always have, plenty of things if I'm in a pretty positive state of mind, I always have plenty of things to do. I'm never bored. There's always, stuff to work on. And but in that time outside of doing that stuff, I was pretty, pretty down. And I noticed she was like around me more and more, even more than she usually is. And she would jump on me, even though, like, again, she's up there. She's almost 100 years old, really, in cat years. She's 21 now. She was like extra affectionate. And I noticed her like climbing on me more, being around me more, jumping on me, staying on me, waking me up in the morning, all of these things. And it was interesting. And I realized, wow, like every time, periods of different periods, which we all go through, periods of your life where your things are going great and awesome, and then things are not going great, and you're having a tough time. I was thinking, wow, okay, other tough times that I've gone through, she has been like extra affectionate. And then so this started happening again. So I decided to like actually do, I don't know, some research about what is that about? Is that a real thing? Is she like showing affection, or is it just some other thing? And I looked it up, and about cat behavior and things like that. And I found some real interesting articles where they were talking about how cats like really have this serious or innate like sense of how people are, or how people are reacting, or their emotional state, especially around their owners. And in this article they were talking about how cats can really tell, really, really, in a very strong way, like when you come home from work, or for the day, or you come home at night and you've been away for a while. Cats can tell like right away what kind of mood you're in. And I was like, huh. And they were saying how in this article that cats, when they see that their owner um, is sad or depressed, they will, like, they know that that person is hurting, so they will console that person and try to comfort them in this like proactive way, because they know that that person is having a hard time. And I was like, wow, like that's pretty amazing. So yeah, so yeah, I've never had, again, I've been a dog person for a very long time. I haven't had a dog in years and years. But as for for, well, as long as I've had her now, for forever, I've been a cat person, and I've never had, grown up having dogs. I had good bonds with dogs, and it was sad when when a pet of yours passed away, and all these things. But with Lucy, my kitty, it's been unlike anything else, like the bond that I've had with her, and all of the things that we've gone through, like literally, everything. It's wild. Um, and that bond that we've had, I've never had that kind of bond with an animal. So yeah, and seeing how things go, she's definitely lived an incredibly long life, and I like to think that I have kept her relatively healthy and relatively safe. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that, because she is part of my life, and she is part of this channel, because she has sat in on a lot of these videos. So you can probably go through, um, I have a lot of videos on the channel now, and you can probably go through various amounts of videos that I've done over the past, like I've been doing this channel for about 3 years, and you can see her in a lot of the videos. So yeah. So I just uploaded a show on a deep dive episode. I've been doing. It's kind of a new idea I thought about for this channel, and kind of having fun doing that. I did my first kind of, I guess, more or less my deep dive, my first deep dive video last week for a movie I've actually covered at least 2 or 3 times. And so I decided to take a video, talk about The movie was 1980s The Howling, which is my favorite werewolf movie of
Howling.
all
Oh,
time. Absolutely love that movie. And so the idea came about from I had watched the movie and watched all the special features right after, and realized I came across some things in the special features that I hadn't actually even seen yet because that particular Blu-ray edition has a lot. And so I was like, man, there's a lot of cool, interesting um, stories about the movie and things I didn't know about. So I was like, hell yeah, hell yeah. And one of the other inspirations was there's another YouTube person that I watch who does mostly horror, and I really like their channel. But they do, like you could take a movie like say, just as an example, um, say, say Lucia Fulci's House by the Cemetery. She's probably covered that video, but and on her channel she'll like she'll do like say a video on that movie, like just talking about the movie, kind of a review and a discussion and all of these things. But then she'll like have this other separate thing of where sometimes she'll bring in a second person, and then sometimes it's just her, but she'll like really take a deep dive and go through you know the the real technical aspects of like who was involved with say House by the Cemetery, like explore who the cinematographer was or who scored the music, and take a deep dive in all of those aspects. So I was like, that's a cool idea, like, because it's a different angle, for people who find this shit interesting, like me. I'm like, yeah, that's cool because I do my one of my favorite things about collecting movies, and it started obviously with the DVD craze, was like movies that I grew up watching or loving. I can suddenly like find out on how that movie got made, and all these kinds of things. And so I did that with The Howling. I did a deep dive episode last week, and I thought it came out pretty good. I tried to not be too redundant and say the same things over and over again because there are two other videos of The Howling on the page. One with the DVD version of The Howling, and then also one with the Blu-ray version. So I thought it came out pretty good, but I got like some really good feedback when I did that video, and I haven't really done that kind of thing too much before. So I decided I'm gonna do more videos like that because there's a lot of movies. I'm a big rewatch guy. There's certain movies that if I'm into a movie, I'll rewatch it until the cows come home. I don't have any reservations about that. I treat it. I have the same habits like if I'm into a band, and I like one of their albums a lot or albums, I'll repeatedly listen to them and never, you know, get really sick of it, and I'll just like get something out of it more and more. So for me, it's and I do that with books too. There's lots of books that I reread over and over again, over a period of a handful of years or whatever. So I treat movies the same way. So I did a show on a movie that I just absolutely think is like just fucking amazing. Night of the Demon from 1983. Just fantastic. It's like the biggest, well, not the biggest, but the best, I think, Bigfoot movie out there. It's just absolutely phenomenal. It's totally gonzo crazy. It's such a entertaining film. It's fucked up. It's twisted. It's sleazy, and it's like so trashy but amazing. So I just uploaded a video about an hour ago on a deep dive video, and it's about a deep dive videos are a little bit longer, I guess, because there's, you go down that rabbit hole and you find out more and more things, and interesting little doors open, and you're like, oh, I can talk about this and I can talk about that. So it's kind of interesting. So the deep dive videos obviously run a little bit longer, but check it out if you get a chance. I enjoyed making them, and I'm gonna probably do more of them because it's something I really feel a deep connection to. So one of the cool things that happened when I was, again, this is one of the things that I think taking those deep dives and why I'm just a huge fan of the special features component for movies is like shit that you come across and that you find. And a lot of the times with movies that I've gotten, there is sometimes multiple movies on one disc, which is pretty amazing. Pretty much all of the Herschel Gordon Lewis movies that I own. Herschel Gordon Lewis is one of my favorite exploitation directors. Pretty much every movie that I have of his, there's always a bonus movie, and really, really cool. So you just get more bang for your buck. And when I was doing, taking a deep dive and checking out the features for this amazing piece of trash, I was like, oh wait, there's another movie on here that was written by the producer of Night of the Demon, and that is Jim L. Bell. Super interesting. I talked a lot about his career and kind of who he was and the different things that he did, and getting into film. He started off with working in the music business. Like he had an actual record label that when he was really young, he started this record label. I think it was called Bell Records. And I talked about this in the video. He went on to become the producer of Night of the Demon, and he was like a big, really made that movie what it is or what it became. The initial cut of the film was virtually had no gore or sex or sleaziness. It was still like a Bigfoot movie, but it was very. I've never seen it. It would be cool to see that version of it. It's not on the disc. They only show the actual theatrical release of the movie, but it would be cool to see what that version was like. But because the gore and the sleazy kind of sexual aspect that's in which eventually became the release, is so awesome, and he was like really a big component of doing that, going with putting in like reshooting some of the scenes and adding more gore, because it is, I think, when it comes to Bigfoot movies and just in general in horror exploitation movies, it's definitely one of the sickest movies out there as far as practical effects. Like there's some pretty nasty shit in the movie, but it's hilarious too. But there's some like super gory things. The most notorious scene in that movie, which I've talked a lot about before, is the scene that involves Bigfoot ripping a guy's penis off, and you have to see it to believe it. It's unbelievable. And then the guy bleeds out and bleeds to death after his penis gets ripped off. Like, I mean, does it get any better than that? No. So, that movie went there. And it was also one of the movies that was banned for a long time. It made the Video Nasties list, which is like really amazing. Sometimes I'm going to probably do a show on the Video Nasties just where I'm going to talk about that. Because I haven't really, I haven't done a show on that. And that was a really terrible time, I mean, it was censorship. Margaret Thatcher in England, she started that organization, basically put together this board of other members that were part of the government, and very, very conservative group, and they, basically went after and attacked movies that were coming out that they deemed to be, morally bankrupt and reprehensible, and that were leading movies that were leading, if kids watched them, they would want to go out and start raping and murdering people and all these just bullshit, insane claims. And they were very conservative. And so they started the Video Nasties list, where they assembled all of these movies and basically banned them, took them off the market all completely for years until VHS came out, and then people who were in the underground film kind of thing, they would get a hold of a movie, record, make copies, duplicates, and then send them around, and then eventually, those movies all came back, and then many years later, bam, now they got fucking 4K release versions of them. It's fucking awesome. So there is justice in this world, I guess. Doesn't seem like it a lot of the time, but I guess there is. But anyway, uh, and the interesting thing about Night of the Demon is it's like the reputation that it had is like, you know, I think super accurate. Like you get movies and you hear about movies over the years that like get this crazy reputation of being like super nasty or super violent or completely gonzo crazy. And every now and then you watch that movie, or a movie that is just embraced, say, by all the critics, that it's just like absolutely amazing. And then you see the movie and you're like, no, it's not really my cup of tea. I feel like it got overly hyped and it's not really what people propped it up to be. That happens, obviously. There was a movie I watched recently on Blu-ray that I had heard all of these things about, that this movie was incredible and that it was this just an incredible film. And I really did not dig it. I didn't get all the way through, and that's called, what is it called? I Stare at the TV Glow. I might have the title wrong. But I didn't make it all the way through. I thought that movie was totally the case of, style over substance. It didn't deliver the goods, I didn't think. And it's an A24 film, so it's like elevated horror, if you will. But anyway, other movies over the years that have made the video nasties list, I've seen some, and that is something I want to go further into. Really check out the movies that were on that list. But I do have, in my travels and in my buying habits, I've definitely come across movies that I do own that were on the video nasties list, or what have you. And a few that I've seen that were actually added or put on that list at that time in the 80s. I've seen a couple of them and I'm like, they're actually not that gory at all. And I just was like, what? Like, and some of these movies went on to have like this legendary status because like, oh, they're so nasty, they're just like brutal, and all these kinds of things. And I've seen it a few times where some of those movies I've seen are actually not really that extreme, and I'm like, I don't get it. But I would say out of the movies I have seen over the years, and luckily the movies that I have bought, some movies that I bought were, it was I just bought it because of the artwork, and then some movies I got a chance to see as a kid. For the most part, most of those movies live up to that reputation, and Night of the Demon totally lives up to that reputation. Like it's the shit. It delivers. It delivers. And so I was going through again the special features, and I came across a movie that was on here that was actually produced by Jim L. Bell, who was who went on to become or Jim L. Ball, I should say, who went on to become the major producer of Night of the Demon, and basically kind of made this, at the end of the day, made this movie what it was. And there's a movie on here called Fraternity of Evil, and he talks about the interview with Jim L. Ball is really interesting and fascinating, and it's really great. And so he talked about, like, in the interview, about how he started. He started in the music industry, like I started to say. He had a tiny little record label that recorded, of all things, these church groups or bands, because he grew up in Texas and he went through to all of these different churches, and churches started hiring for him to kind of record their musical groups, and most of it, I guess, was non-denominational, which was kind of interesting. So he that was his career in the beginning when he was really young. I think he was 19 or 18, and he started a record company where they basically where he recorded all of these church bands and groups and choirs in Texas, in the 50s and 60s, and then released a lot of those recordings on little 45 records. Really wild. And that's kind of how he started his career. And then he, eventually got into wanting to into the film industry. And so the first film that he worked on, and he actually wrote it, is Fraternity of Horror. And it's on Fraternity of Horror is like uber obscure, really really hard to find, but it's actually on this disc. And he was one of the head writers, and this was like his first movie, first time ever doing anything in the film industry. And it was directed by Richard Crane. It stars Lindy, Wayne Lundy and Susan Lassenberg and Ted Christian. And I watched it the other night, and it's really cool. Like, I actually thought it was kind of awesome. It's from 1964. The transfer of this movie, and I think it's because it's so obscure, and it is pretty old. It's from '64, so that's a few years ago. The transfer of this movie is really rough. There's a lot of scenes where they're kind of in this dark. It's kind of an old dark house, kind of scary film, and so there's a lot of scenes that are shot that take place in these really dark kind of rooms or dark areas, and it is a little bit hard to see what the heck is going on. But given how old this movie is, and given that I don't think that this movie ever got like a real release or a real like theatrical release. It might have had a really really small little deal where it might have played at a few theaters, but it's super obscure and super low budget. And I was really surprised at the amount of information I have found on this movie, but it was really good. I dug it. It's again, it's super. It does feel like the movie was shot for like $30, and it's a total exploitation movie in the '60s, and so it's like uber low budget. Probably one of the most low budget movies I've ever seen. And but I dug it. I thought I was surprised by um I liked I really liked the atmosphere, and I was really surprised on where the movie goes, and especially kind of the reveal of what is happening in the story and how it ends, which I thought was, I will have to say, even though this movie is uber low budget, it might not be everybody's cup of tea because, well, at least this edition, it is kind of hard to watch because a lot of it is shot in the dark. So like the film is really graded, and it is a little bit tough to physically get through to watch, and it is so well, to a degree, poorly acted. But I thought it was still fun, and I was really, the thing that I liked about this movie is how the place or places that ended up going, where I was really surprised and I didn't see coming, and I was impressed, to be honest. I was impressed because I thought, okay, this is like a haunted house kind of movie, and then you realize, and it's short, it's like an hour long, hour and 10 minutes, and then you realize, wait, it's not really that at all, and then it goes into a totally different direction, and suddenly it's like it goes from like a ghost story, ghost, horror kind of a thing, to where it's like a science fiction movie, and it was pretty wild. So I thought, wow, okay, that is a pretty original story, So, and I don't want to give it away, even though this movie is probably, you probably can find it online, but I think it's pretty hard to track down. I mean, I kind of feel like this movie is like some one of the most obscure movies I've ever come across. But I really dug it. I really dug it. If I ever came across it on Blu-ray or DVD, I'd probably buy it. Yeah, I'm happy with this version of it, and I was pretty psyched that I came across this on the special features component of Night of the Demon because I really loved the interview with Jim Ball, and in an interview he started talking about Fraternity of Horror, and then I went down to the next thing to watch, and I was like, oh wait, they actually have the movie on here, and I was like, no shit. So I enjoyed it. I liked I really liked the 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 originality of it. It definitely is like uber. Um, it reminds me a lot of like Herschel Gordon Lewis, like where it's really like it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough around the edges, and as far as like the actors in it or the acting ability. But there's still something about it that I'm like, this is kind of cool. So, and the interesting thing, the premise, I don't want to give it away. Not that like a lot of people are going to probably run and try to go see this movie, but it came out in 1964, so it's wicked old school. Like it's insane how old the movie is, and kind of like you know the premise of the movie is basically about this group of college kids, and they're part of this fraternity, and them and their fraternity brothers or sisters and their friends, they decide to like have this, like, I guess it's kind of like a, if they call it a hazing, but they decide to like try to scare their friends, and that there's gonna be they're gonna like bring them into this spooky old house and try to scare the shit out of each other, basically, with like other people being involved, creating this haunted house atmosphere. And that's kind of the basic premise of it. And it's centered around this group of like college kids, and they're like pulling pranks on each other and trying to set up these little things of where they're trying to scare the shit out of each other and see how far they can take it. And a series of things happen of where some real things end up happening that are you know kind of scary, and that it's not make believe. And then when it gets into the reveal of like what that's about, it goes into totally different territory, which I thought was cool. So yeah, check it out. 1964 Fraternity of Horror. You never know. You never know what you're going to discover. Total. I mean, total. Again, I have a high tolerance for watching trash films. Probably, certain films I've that I that I watch or that I own. Some people would be just like, how can you watch this piece of shit, or how can you sit through this? And I generally am like, yeah, I love it. One example of that is, which was hilarious. One of the probably the biggest example for me of that was, there's a movie. I'm a big fan of movies that are shot on video. And those films are like, a lot of the shot on video movies were shot. Well, there's a lot of them throughout the decades, but really it seems like in the late '80s and in the '90s there was a shit ton of them. And I feel like, and those movies are uber low budget and really rough, like really, really rough. And they're all like shot on video. And then there was like, the genre kind of got big, and there's actually directors that intentionally try to shoot everything on video, but they're uber low budget. They're usually like uber violent and just like weird and just really just out there. And I really love that genre because I definitely think it's absolutely part of the kind of the whole exploitation B movie world. And I own a few of those. And a few years ago, a buddy of mine turned me on to this movie that I absolutely think is it's one of my favorite. It's definitely in the world of exploitation movies and like shot on video videos. It is definitely the best, I think, shot on video movie that there is. And it's so fucking like, it's so over the top and so ridiculous and so just out of bounds. And that is Suburban Sasquatch. And it's fucking hilarious. It's totally weird. It's super shitty, and it's just such a fun movie. And I remember a couple of years ago, I had a friend who was visiting, and we have a mutual friend, or had a mutual friend at the time. And Suburban Sasquatch. Speaking of Bigfoot, it is a Bigfoot movie, and so and the little group of people that were all coming together to have dinner that my friend was putting together. They were really into horror movies, and they seemed to like a lot of weird shit, and we're pretty open minded to to films and music and things. So I was like, I'm totally gonna bring Suburban Sasquatch over. So we ended up. So I brought it over. I have a really awesome Blu-ray version of it, and we had dinner, and then we were like having some drinks, and then we sat on the couch and we started watching the movie, and they literally were like, they lasted maybe 20 minutes into it. They were like, this is a piece of shit, and they just couldn't get into it. They're like, what the fuck are we watching? And I'm like, come on, guys, this movie is fucking. Again, I don't want people to like everything that I like because I know that's not possible. But I'm like, come on, guys, this movie fucking rules. Like, this is like the ultimate kind of party movie to watch, and it's so fucking hilarious. And they were like, they hated it, and then instantly I got outvoted, and they took the movie out, and I was just like, okay, whatever. So, Fraternity of Horror is like that. It's pretty rough, but I really liked it. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Peace.